Lesson 91. Muslims suffering harm. Quraysh harms the Prophet, peace be upon him. When Quraysh realized that they were not able to avert Abu Talib and the others from supporting the Prophet, peace be upon him, and protecting him, that the Prophet's message was spreading widely, and that the number of believers was increasing, they resorted to harming him. They resorted to foolish ridicule of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and to hurt him, especially when he prayed at the Kaaba. Abu Jahl attempted to crush the Prophet's head while he was prostrating, but Allah protected him. When Abu Jahl approached the Prophet, he felt he had lost control of his body, and the rock fell from his hands. Frightened, he went back to his people, his face pale, saying that he saw a dreadful camel, that he never saw anything like it before, and that it was about to eat him. Abu Jahl persuaded Uqba ibn Abu Mu'ayt to throw camel waste on the back of the Prophet, peace be upon him, while he prostrated. None of the Muslims were able to remove it until the Prophet's daughter Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, came and removed it. The immoral Abu Jahl prohibited the Prophet, peace be upon him, from praying at the Kaaba. One time, when he saw the Prophet praying there, he asked him, "Didn't I forbid you from this?" The Prophet answered him in a very strong way and threatened him. Abu Jahl then replied, "How could you threaten me when I have the most people around me?" Abu Jahl meant that people gather round him in large numbers because of his great status. Allah then revealed these verses that can be translated as, "Not at all. Indeed, in case he does not refrain, we will indeed drag him by the forelock, a lying, sinful forelock, so let him call upon his assembly. We will call upon the guards of hell. Not at all. Do not obey him, and prostrate yourself and draw near to Allah." Another time, while the Prophet, peace be upon him, was praying at the Kaaba, the evil Uqba ibn Abu Mu'ayt wrapped his cloak around the Prophet's neck and tried to strangle him. Abu Bakr came and pushed him away, saying, "Would you kill a man because he says, 'My Lord is Allah,' and he has come to you with clear signs, proofs from your Lord?" Once a man came to the gathering of Quraysh, complaining that Abu Jahl was delayed in paying back his debt. The people told him, "Muhammad can help you." Their intention was to ruin things more between the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Jahl. The man went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and asked him to help him recover his debt from Abu Jahl. The Prophet, peace be upon him, accompanied the man to Abu Jahl's house, and he knocked on the door. Abu Jahl asked, "Who is it?" The Prophet answered, "Muhammad." Abu Jahl opened the door frightened, his face turning pale. The Prophet said, "Give this man his rightful due." Abu Jahl said, "You will not leave until you get it." And at once he gave the money back to him. The people of Quraysh were surprised from the outcome of the incident, which was not what they had expected. They witnessed their friend being defeated. Abu Jahl told them, "I swear by Allah, when they knocked on my door, I heard a voice that terrified me. Then I saw a monstrous camel like I had never seen before in my life." Abu Lahab was the Prophet's uncle, but he was even more cruel to him than people who were not his relatives. In addition, Abu Lahab was the Prophet's neighbor. He and his wife used to throw filth in front of his door. The following were people who hurt the Prophet, peace be upon him: Al-As ibn Wal as-Sahmi, who was the father of Amr ibn al-As; Al-Aswad ibn Abd Yaghurth al-Zuhri, who was from Banu Zuhra, the maternal uncles of the Prophet, peace be upon him; Al-Aswad ibn al-Muttalib al-Asadi, who was the cousin of Khadija, the Prophet's wife; Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, who was the uncle of Abu Jahl; and An-Nadr ibn al-Harith al-Abdari, none of these people accepted Islam. Allah made them all perish as unbelievers. Some were killed in the battle of Badr, and others succumbed to deadly diseases. Allah is Almighty, possessor of retribution. At this time, Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet, peace be upon him, accepted Islam after a woman slave teased him about the way Abu Jahl hurt his nephew. He felt so angry and went to the corrupted man saying, "How could you insult Muhammad when I am following his religion?" Then Allah guided Hamza to the light of Islam, and he was one of the strongest Muslims against the enemies of Islam. That is why he was called the Lion of Allah. What Quraysh offered the Prophet, peace be upon him, to renounce calling to Allah. When the unbelievers in Quraysh realized that harming the Muslims was not an effective method to stop the spread of Islam, they had a meeting to discuss what they should do to make the Prophet, peace be upon him, renounce his mission. They agreed to send one of the most honored men of Quraysh, Utbah ibn Rabi'a al-Abshami, to present to the Prophet, peace be upon him, some offers so that he would stop calling to Allah. So he went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he was praying at the mosque. He told him, "My nephew, you are from the best of our ancestry, and you brought to your people a grave matter that separated them. You scorned their intellect and denounced their gods, their religion and their forefathers. If your goal from this is wealth, we will collect money from all of us to make you the richest among us. And if you seek honor, we will make you our leader, and we will not make any decision without you. If you want to be a king, we will make you our king. And if you have been inflicted with jinn, we will seek treatment for you and spend all our money until you recover." When Utbah presented all his offers, the Prophet, peace be upon him, read to him Surat Fussilat until he reached the verse that can be translated as, "Yet in case they veer away, then say, I warn you of a stunning thunderbolt, like to the stunning thunderbolt of Ad and Thamud." At that point, Utbah covered the Prophet's mouth, begging him to stop. When Utbah went back to his people, he said, "O people of Quraysh, I have heard words that I have never heard the like of before. I swear they are not poetry, soothsayer's speech, nor magic. So obey me and stay away from the man. I swear that his words will be of prominence. So if the other Arabs hurt him, then you will get rid of him without effort. And if they believe him, you will share in the glory with him." They said, "Muhammad has bewitched you." When these offers did not work, Quraysh used other means. They suggested that the Prophet, peace be upon him, to join them in their worship, and they would participate with him in his worship. Allah revealed to him Surat the disbelievers. When they were disappointed from this effort too, they asked the Prophet to eliminate from the Holy Quran what words enraged them, like insulting their idols and the threats of severe punishment. Then Allah revealed to him what can be translated as, "Say, in no way can I exchange it of my own accord. Decidedly, I closely follow nothing except what is revealed to me." When they realized that all of these attempts did not work, they used an approach of challenging him with what seemed like impossible requests. They said to him, "If you are truthful, show us a miracle that we request. We want the moon to be split into 2 pieces." When Allah made this happen and made it visible to them, they became more stubborn and continued asking the Prophet, peace be upon him, stubborn and obstinate questions such as, "And they have said, we will never believe you until you make a fountain to gush forth from the earth for us, or until you have a garden of palms and vines, then you make rivers to erupt forth amidst it abundantly," literally with all manner of eruption, or you make the heaven to fall down, as you have asserted, on us in lumps, or you come up with Allah and the angels and their dependent tribes, or you have a home of wonderful decoration, or you ascend into heaven, and we will never believe your ascent until you keep sending down on us a book that we can read. He answered them the way Allah ordered him to do, as in the verse that means, "Say, all extolment be to my Lord. Have I been anything except a mortal, as messenger?" When all their methods failed, the Quraysh resorted back to harming the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the believers, and they took on everything in their power to hurt them. Quraysh started to hurt the believers. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, suffered when he started calling to Islam in public, so did his companions. Each tribe was harming his own Muslim members. The Muslims persevered and endured this treatment patiently. They did not forsake their religion. On the contrary, they persisted in their beliefs until Allah the Almighty gave victory to his religion. Among the ones who have suffered for the sake of Allah was Bilal ibn Rabah. He was a slave of Umayyad ibn Khalaf al-Jumahi. He used to wrap a rope round his neck and leave him to the children to play with. Umayyah also used to take him out in the extremely hot weather and have a huge rock placed on his chest. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, bought him and set him free for the sake of Allah. And among them was also Amir ibn Fuhayra. He would be tortured to the extent that he was not aware of what he was saying. He was a slave of Safwan ibn Umayyah. As-Sadiq bought him and set him free too. And among them also was a woman called Zinnira. She was tortured until she became blind. That only increased her faith. And among those who also suffered was Ammar ibn Yasir, his brother, his father, and his mother. They were tortured by fire. The Prophet, peace be upon him, passed by them once while they were being tortured and said, "Be patient, O family of Yasir. Paradise is your promised reward." Ammar's parents died from the torment. Ammar was forced to falsely utter the words of disbelief to be set free. Allah revealed the verse, what can be translated as, "Except him who has been compelled and his heart is still composed with belief." In general, all the early Muslims have suffered for the sake of Allah, but this did not make them forsake their religion, rather their faith was strengthened, and they said, "Allah is the reckoner, enough for us, and how excellent is the ever-trusted trustee." And when the Prophet, peace be upon him, saw the suffering of his companions and their inability to defend themselves because of their small numbers and lack of preparedness, he asked them to emigrate to Abyssinia until Allah would change the situation in Mecca. 10 men and 5 women emigrated. Among them, in the lead, was the companion Uthman ibn Affan and his wife Ruqayya, the daughter of the Prophet, peace be upon him. They stayed there for 3 months and then they returned to Mecca. None of them could enter Mecca except under the protection of one of their dignitaries. At this time, Umar ibn al-Khattab accepted Islam. He was about 26 or 27 then. When he accepted Islam, the unbelievers said, "Today those Muslim people have regained justice, to our loss." When Quraysh ran out of tricks to use, they offered Banu Abd Manaf double the blood money to deliver the Prophet, peace be upon him, to them. Banu Abd Manaf refused this offer. Then Quraysh offered to give Abu Talib, a young man from their tribe, in exchange for his nephew. He refused, saying, "How ironic, you want to give me your son to raise, and I give you mine to kill." When the unbelievers of Quraysh ran out of ideas to stop Islam, and when they failed in changing the Prophet and the believers through harming them, they agreed to boycott Banu Abd Manaf and drive them out from Mecca to make it extremely difficult for them to live. They cut all transactions with them, no buying or selling with them, until they delivered the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to be killed. To ensure enforcement, they wrote a document describing their boycott and posted it inside the Kaaba. Banu Abd Manaf, the Muslims among them and the unbelievers alike, turned to Abu Talib and came to live near him in his mountain pass. The unbelievers blockaded them for about 3 years until they ran out of food and had nothing to eat but the leaves of the trees. Emigration to Abyssinia. After the Prophet, peace be upon him, entered the mountain pass, he advised his companions to emigrate to Abyssinia. Hence 83 men emigrated, accompanied by 17 of their women and some of their children. All of them were of the clans of Quraysh. They stayed abroad until the siege of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the clan of Abd Manaf came to an end. When they reached Abyssinia, they were received by a fair and tolerant king, Negus, who allowed them to publicly declare their religion and safely perform it. When Quraysh learnt of this, they sent an envoy with gifts for the Negus and his ministers and bishops, asking them to drive away the immigrants. The Negus refused to do so. Instead, he sent for the immigrants to ask them about their religion. Ja'far ibn Abu Talib spoke to him. Ja'far described to him their situation before Islam and how Islam guided them to leave paganism, to worship Allah only, and to acquire good morals. Ja'far then read the first part of Surat Maryam, a chapter of the Holy Quran, which included the story of the birth of Jesus. Afterwards, the Negus said, "That is like what Jesus said." He then questioned them about the Quraysh's claim that the Muslims insult Jesus. Ja'far replied, "Our religion told us that Jesus is a prophet, Allah's slave, and came by the word be of Allah to the Virgin Mary." The Negus replied, "Jesus is no more than this." Then he told the immigrants to feel safe. The gifts of Quraysh were returned, and they went back to their people with disappointment and humiliation. Abu Bakr wanted to emigrate to Abyssinia because of the great oppression that he faced by his people. However, Ibn Dighna had met him and said, "Abu Bakr, a man like you should never run away. I will protect you." Abu Bakr changed his mind, and Ibn Dighna went among the Quraysh, telling people that Abu Bakr should never be driven away. How can you drive away a man who gives to the poor, is good to his relatives even when they turn their backs on him, entertains his guests and helps everyone? Hence, Quraysh agreed to the words of Ibn Dighna, for he was an eminent man. Abu Bakr stayed at home, where he built a mosque to worship Allah and read the Quran. The Qurayshi men and women watched and listened to him with amazement. As a result, Qurayshi pagans were shocked, and they asked Ibn Dighna to no longer protect Abu Bakr if he would not give up what he was doing. Ibn Dighna therefore asked him to practice his worship secretly. Yet, As-Siddiq, a title of Abu Bakr meaning most faithful, told him, "I return your protection. I am in serenity with Allah's patronage." He continued to worship Allah publicly, enduring the abuse of Quraysh with great patience, for Allah is with the patient ones. Tearing up the boycott document. When the siege became too difficult for the clan of Banu Abd Manaf to bear, a group of eminent Qurayshis were sympathetic. These Qurayshis stood up for them, went to the Kaaba, house of Allah in Mecca, and tore down the paper on which the boycott was declared after it had been worn to shreds by rodents, just as the Prophet, peace be upon him, had told them it would be. Nothing was left of it except the word Allah. Afterwards they were able to leave the mountain pass. The Prophet, peace be upon him, carried on advocating Islam, and the number of Muslims continued to increase. Their enemies could not abuse them, but things changed when the Prophet's supportive uncle Abu Talib died during the 10th year of the Islamic message. With the death of the uncle, Quraysh once again began to harm the Muslims. Hence the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to At-Taif, where he asked his chieftains to embrace Islam and support him. However, they refused to do so. They even encouraged their followers to abuse him, peace be upon him. He then returned to Mecca and asked Al-Mut'im ibn Adi to aid him, and he accepted. The Prophet, peace be upon him, went to the Kaaba under the protection of Al-Mut'im, where he circumambulated, prayed, and then went home, protected by Almighty Allah from enemies.